I'm Adam.
And I'm Duke.
And this is Where There's a Williams, There's a Way. Hey Duke, what's new?
Adam, you ever notice how a baseball game is like searching for my hat?
Can't say I have. How's that?
Well, I spent 9 innings looking for something that might not even be there.
Well, that's one way to put it. But at least in baseball, you know the ball is somewhere on the field.
True enough, but it's like me in the outfield. I keep missing it by a mile.
Maybe you need a better strategy. How do you usually go about looking for your hat?
Oh, I got a system. I check the barn, the porch, the kitchen, then the barn again. It's a bit like baseball too. Keep going in circles, hoping for a home run.
Sounds like you need an umpire to keep you on track. You know, someone to say you're out when you're looking in the wrong place.
Or maybe just someone to call the game off on account of darkness.
Well, at least in baseball, you've got the 7th inning stretch. Do you have a break during your hat search?
Yep, that's when I take a nap. Figure if I sleep on it, the hat might come to me in a dream.
Maybe you should just start wearing a baseball cap. In today's book, Shorty and his family, along with thousands of other Japanese Americans, have been forced to relocate from their homes to a camp after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Fighting the heat, dust, and freezing cold nights of the desert, Shorty and the others at the camp need something to look forward to, even if only for 9 innings. So they build a playing field, and in this unlikely place a baseball league is formed. Surrounded by barbed wire fences and guards and towers, Shorty soon finds that he is playing not only to win, but to gain dignity and self-respect as well. Let's get started. Baseball Saved Us. Written by Ken Mochizuki. Illustrated by Don Lee. Author's Note. In 1942, while the United States was at war with Japan, the U.S. Army moved all people of Japanese descent away from the West Coast. They were sent to internment camps in the middle of American deserts up until 1945. The reason, the U.S. government said, was because it could not tell who might be loyal to Japan. None of these immigrants from Japan, or their children who were American citizens, were ever proved to be dangerous to America during World War II. In 1988, the U.S. government admitted that what it did was wrong. One day, my dad looked out at the endless desert and decided then and there to build a baseball field. He said people needed something to do in camp. We weren't in a camp for fun, like summer camp. Ours was in the middle of nowhere, and we were behind a barbed wire fence. Soldiers with guns made sure we stayed there, and the man in the tower saw everything we did, no matter where we were. As Dad began walking over the dry, cracked dirt, I asked him again why we were here. Because, he said, America's at war with Japan, and the government thinks that Japanese Americans can't be trusted, but it's wrong that we're in here. We're Americans too. Then he made a mark in the dirt and mumbled something about where the infield bases should be. Back in school, before camp, I was shorter and smaller than the rest of the kids. I was always the last to be picked for any team when we played games. Then a few months ago, it got even worse. The kids started to call me names and nobody talked to me, even though I didn't do anything bad. At the same time, the radio kept talking about someplace far away called Pearl Harbor. One day, Mom and Dad came to get me out of school. Mom cried a lot because we had to move out of our house real fast, throwing away a lot of our stuff. A bus took us to a place where we had to live in horse stalls. We stayed there for a while until we came here. This camp wasn't anything like home. It was so hot in the daytime and so cold at night. Dust storms came and got sand in everything and nobody could see a thing. We sometimes got caught outside standing in line to eat or go to the bathroom. We had to use the bathroom with everybody else instead of one at a time like at home. We had to eat with everybody else too. But my big brother Teddy ate with his own friends. We lived with a lot of people in what were called barracks. The place was small and had no walls. Babies cried at night and kept us up. Back home, the older people were always busy working. But now, all they did was stand or sit around. Once Dad asked Teddy to get him a cup of water. "Get it yourself," Teddy said. "What did you say?" Dad snapped back. The older men stood up and pointed at Teddy. "How dare you talk to your father like that?" one of them shouted. Teddy got up, kicked the crate he was sitting on, and walked away. I had never heard Teddy talk to Dad that way before.
Did you know that I was teaching my students about World War II and internment camps today? Internment camps? I reckon that's some serious business for youngins. What'd they think about it? They were pretty shocked. One of them asked if the camps were like timeout corners for adults. I had to explain that it was way worse than a timeout. Imagine if someone put you in a camp because you couldn't find your hat. Well, that'd be a raw deal. Although, if it were up to me, it'd be mighty grateful if someone helped me find my hat while I was in there. Those were tough times. I hear folks losing their homes and all. Exactly. It's hard for kids to grasp that. They're used to losing their video games for a week, not their freedom. One kid asked me if they got their hats back when it was over. I had to tell him it wasn't that simple. Losing your hat and your freedom? That's a double whammy right there. Guess I ought to be grateful all I lose is my hat. Yeah, perspective is everything. Maybe next time you lose your hat, just think of it as a mini history lesson.
That's when Dad knew we needed baseball. We got shovels and started digging up the sagebrush in a big empty space near our barracks. The man in the tower watched us the whole time. Pretty soon, other grown-ups and their kids started to help. We didn't have anything we needed for baseball, but the grown-ups were pretty smart. They funneled water from irrigation ditches to flood what would become our baseball field. The water packed down the dust and made it hard. There weren't any trees, but they found wood to build the bleachers. Bats, balls, and gloves arrived in cloth sacks from friends back home. My mom and other moms took the covers off mattresses and used them to make uniforms. They looked almost like the real thing. I tried to play, but I wasn't that good. Dad said I just had to try harder. But I didn't know that playing baseball here was a little easier than back home. Most of the time, the kids were the same size as me. All the time I practiced, the man in the tower watched. He probably saw the other kids giving me a bad time and thought I was no good, so I tried to be better because he was looking. Soon there were baseball games all the time. Grown-ups played us and kids played too. I played second base because my team said that was the easiest. Whenever I was at bat, the infield of the other team started joking around and moved in real close. The catcher behind me and the crowd for the other team would say, "Easy out." I usually grounded out. Sometimes I got a single. Then came one of our last games of the year to decide on the championship. It was the bottom of the ninth inning and the other team was winning 3-2. One of our guys was on second and there were 2 outs. 2 pitches and I swung both times and missed. I could tell that our guy on second was begging me to at least get a base hit so somebody better could come up at bat. The crowd was getting loud. "You can do it! Strike out! No hitter! No hitter!" I glanced at the guardhouse behind the left field foul line and saw the man in the tower, leaning on the rail with the blinding sun glinting off his sunglasses. He was always watching, always staring. It suddenly made me mad. I gripped the bat harder and took a couple of practice swings. I was going to hit the ball past the guardhouse, even if it killed me. Everyone got quiet and the pitcher threw. I stepped into my swing and pulled the bat around hard. I'd never heard a crack like that before. The ball went even farther than I expected. Against the hot desert sun, I could see the ball high in the air as I ran to first base. The ball went over the head of the left fielder. I dashed around the bases, knowing for sure that I would get tagged out, but I didn't care, running as fast as I could to home plate. I didn't even realize that I had crossed it. Before I knew it, I was up in the air on the shoulders of my teammates. I looked up at the tower, and the man, with a grin on his face, gave me the thumbs up sign. You know, I've been teaching my class about perseverance. Reminds me of that time we worked so hard to fix up the old barn. Oh yeah, partner. That was quite a project. Took us better part of a month, didn't it? Sure did. Every day after school, I'd head over and would work until the sun went down. Those kids still think I spent that month giving detention. And every morning I'd spent half the day looking for my hat before I even got started. That barn almost got built without me. It's a miracle we finished it all, with you misplacing that hat every 5 minutes. Remember when we finally put up the last beam? Oh, I remember.
We stood there looking at our handiwork all proud-like. And that's when you pointed out that I was wearing my hat the whole time. I swear, Duke, if you ever lost your head, you'd probably look for it while wearing a helmet. Well, Adam, the important thing is we got done. That barn's still standing, ain't it? It is. I'll never forget the look on those kids' faces when I told them about it. They couldn't believe their teacher built a barn.
But it wasn't as if everything were fixed. Things were bad again when we got home from camp after the war. Nobody talked to us on the street, and nobody talked to me at school either. Most of my friends from camp didn't come back here. I had to eat lunch by myself. Then baseball season came. I was the smallest guy again, but playing baseball in camp had made me a lot better. The other guys saw that I was a pretty good player. They started calling me Shorty, but they smiled when they said it. By the time the first game came around, I felt almost like part of the team. Everybody was laughing and horsing around on the bus. But as soon as we got out there, it hit me. Nobody on my team or the other team or even anybody in the crowd looked like me. When I walked out onto the field, my hands were shaking. It felt like all these mean eyes were staring at me, wanting me to make mistakes. I dropped the ball that was thrown to me, and I heard people in the crowd yell, "Jap." I hadn't heard that word since before I went to camp. It meant they hated me. My team came up to bat, and I was up next. I looked down. I thought, maybe I should pretend to be sick so I wouldn't have to finish the game. But I knew that would make things even worse, because I would get picked on at school for being a chicken, and they would use the bad word too. When it was my turn at bat, the crowd was screaming, "The jab's no good! Easy out!" I heard laughing. I swung twice and missed. The crowd roared each time I missed, drowning out my teammates, who were saying, "Come on, Shorty, you can do it!" I stepped back to catch my breath. When I stepped back up to the plate, I looked at the pitcher. The sun glinted off his glasses as he stood on the mound, like the guard in the tower. We stared at each other. Then I blocked out the noise around me and got set. The pitcher wound up and threw. I swung and felt that solid whack again, and I could see that little ball in the air against the blue sky and puffy white clouds. It looked like it was going over the fence.
Hey, remember that time we won the big game? I still can't believe it. I reckon you'll have to jog my memory. I've been in a heap of games. Which one you talking about? The one where we teamed up against the high schoolers? The charity basketball game? We're quite the dynamic duo. Ah, that one. How could I forget? You were like a jackrabbit on coffee, darting around everywhere. I just tried to keep up. And you were a natural. I'll never forget how you confused the heck out of them with that lasso trick. Well, I did warn them not to underestimate an old cowboy. Didn't think they'd take it so literal when I roped the ball away from their star player. You should have seen his face. Oh, I did. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. And then you threw the ball to me, and somehow I managed to make the three-pointer? I'm still not sure how that happened. You was like a hawk eyeing a rabbit. But what really tickled me was that when you got all them kids to start cheering with your teacher chant, had the whole crowd spellbound. Well, I just used a little classroom magic. Give me a D, give me a U, give me a K-E. They loved it. But Duke, you were the real MVP. Nah, it was a team effort, partner. But I gotta admit, I ain't never seen so many youngsters jumping up and down like that. Almost lost my hat in the excitement. But then again, I always do. Next time, though, I'll make sure we have a hat wrangler on standby. Sounds like a plan. Here's to winning more big games and always finding that darn hat. If you thought this video was a win, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'm Adam, and I'm Duke, and this is Where There's a Williams, There's a Way.
Did you know the first baseball game played was in New York on June 19, 1845? The New York Nine defeated the Knickerbockers 23-1 in 4 innings.